Hi, everybody. Welcome back to New York City. This is Dave Vellante with Scott Hebner, and you're watching theCUBE's continuous coverage of the AWS Financial Services Symposium. This is the 10th year of the symposium. Started out with 35 people in a small hotel room, the Roosevelt, and now it's up to several hundred. I'd say 5, 6, maybe even 700 people here. Peter Sprenger is here. He's a field CTO for Splunk, a Cisco company. They just announced earnings just last night. I saw G2 Patel over in Saudi shaking hands with MBS in the POTUS. I was like, there's my brother from another mother, G2 hanging with the big dog. So we're super excited to see that. We just had him on at RSAC. Welcome to theCUBE, first time.
Thank you, great to be here.
Yeah, so what's happening in your world? You coming off of RSAC. I don't know if you were at the event, but you know.
San Francisco was a lot of fun, and it's just unprecedented is a word that's probably overused the last few years. We wish it would maybe calm down a little bit, but it just the technology we're seeing, especially in AI and where people are leveraging technology to solve problems, it seems to only be accelerating. And a lot of fun at RSA, and it was great seeing how people are solving the problems at scale and really at machine speed as we think about what we can do now.
There was obviously a lot of AI talk. There was AI talk last year, Gen AI talk the year before, but it felt like it was much more substantive this year, number one. And number two, it seems like the industry is finally, at least to a certain extent, calming down with tools creep. Even though there's a lot of innovation, a lot of new startups, I think CISOs and practitioners saying, okay, we've got a lot of capabilities and we really want to try to leverage them. What are you seeing there, Peter?
I think it's absolutely some of the trends we're seeing. And we're seeing executives now saying, look, I made these investments. What did I get for it? And so they're having a higher expectation of their tooling. They're realizing that these things work together and they were designed to work together. So if I go with a best-in-breed solution, I'm really buying into an ecosystem. And that ecosystem gives me an end-to-end solution where teams are empowered to do their work faster. They can look at data that's more comprehensive, it's more accurate, and it's just easier for teams to work together. So that speed and that velocity of response accelerates, giving leaders insights that matter. I also think on AI, it's something where there's the allure of the promise of AI, and we've gotten to the point where there are now these contours we can see it in practice in some use cases. And we've also come down from the high a little bit, where we've realized that for AI to work, you have to have a good data program and a good AI program. And the people that maybe didn't invest in a good data program in the onset, they don't have some catching up to do, but you have to do both. And I think the reality is sometimes a little sad, but that's where we are.
Yeah, and you've spent a lifetime in financial services, right?
Just about that in the military. So
that in the military.
Thank you for your service. Appreciate it.
No, listen.
And what are the unique characteristics you see in this whole space? I know, fraud detection with AI, things of that nature are really, really important. But if there's any industry, maybe financial services and life sciences, where trust and explainability and compliance are critical number one objectives, what's unique about this industry?
We see the scale and the frequency and sophistication of attacks increasing, accelerating rates. And so when we look at where we have nation-state threat actors, we have AI being used in attacks, and so we have threat actors that are investing in infrastructure to attack companies. Now, the financial services industry is, of course, handling the lifeblood of the economy with funding and really engines of commerce. It's an attractive target, and with that, we also see significant investments in the financial services industry. With that investment comes complexity. That complexity is challenging to manage without just a lot of effort and thought put in architecture, and how do our teams work together, and what is the end goal to make decisions and really realize that value in the cybersecurity tooling that we've invested in. In our case, for Splunk, once we have data in the platform, what else can that data be used for? And you mentioned fraud. There's looking at IT services, business operations. The banks all have online banking portals for customers. And so the insights that are helpful for cybersecurity, we see those helpful for really every other part of the business as well. And so it's just dashboards of getting it out.
And the lifeline of AI is data.
Yeah.
Right. And I think in the world that you're living in, at least from what I understand, is could be very fragmented, right? you have different teams, you have different processes, you have different data sets. That all I would imagine have to come together to really be effective with AI, particularly around fraud detection and remediation. Right? And that's the team of teams concept.
Yeah, and that's where we do see many of the large organizations building out, a fusion center to be able to help the teams talk together. Underlying that, you want a shared ecosystem of data, and you need a really good data platform to help make sense of all the data that's coming in. And I think data has a half-life, and so it's less valuable as time goes on, especially if there's an incident, if it's cyber or a business incident or whatever it may be. And so getting those insights quickly, making sure that a leader has all the information that they can get, helps them make the best decision they can. They'll never know everything, but you want to at least know what's out there and eliminate some of the unknown unknowns, as people like to say.
So why Willie Sutton, right? Why do you rob the banks? Because that's where the money is. So obviously that's the big risk. Having been in that world, basically these financial institutions, they spin up products that are database products very, very quickly, and they tend to have teams that are focused on the execution, and so those teams tend to be siloed. Is data the sort of the unifying force?
I think it's the unifying force, and it's also there's the expectation, rightly so, from stakeholders that is my data safe, and we see a very heavy regulatory focus, as it should. That is customers' data safeguarded? Are we looking at privacy protections where we should? Are we defending against cyber threat actors? And so managing all of the stakeholders and making sure that there's trust and confidence in the financial system, that's a heavy responsibility. And it requires a lot of planning to be able to not only do the job well, but also make sure that people still have confidence that that's happening. And you can only do that with a good data program. And you can only reduce risk or mitigate risk by understanding it first to make well-informed, data-focused decisions. So, I hear about all this. In fact, at RSAC this year, a lot of talk about agentic, but I feel as though it's a disaster waiting to happen from a security standpoint. Everybody's rushing in. How do you see that in financial services? And how are organizations sort of designing security in versus bolting it on? Every day I open the Wall Street Journal, there's another attack. It's a gift that keeps on giving, the cybersecurity industry. But at the end of the day, the industry's pulling together. How do you see, what's your philosophy around agentic, and how do we protect against that impending disaster? I'll take the easy part of the question first. Cybersecurity, great people. There has been such investment in people and technology that when you're trying to find a needle in a haystack and AI helps you find it with this really good metal detector, and then you have a really highly trained analyst that's an expert in his or her field say, yep, it's a needle, and then you do it, that's just an easy win. Mm-hmm. And likewise, if someone's using, Splunk released AI to help write queries for searching, mass amounts of data, and AI can help do that. And so those are use cases that unequivocally just make life better for analysts, where there aren't enough analysts in the job market to scale like we have been for the last 10 or 15 years. And now there's so much more data. I think over 90% of data that's alive right now was created in the last 2 years. And so when you look at that type of scale and analyzing it, we need AI. The other more complex question is we have the promise of AI. And with that, we see some organizations stifle creativity and they say, you cannot use it. And then people find a way to get their jobs done. And then they go some other area that you can't see. And that's where we see Cisco leading with AI defense and the ability to analyze models and understand what's going on. So we need cybersecurity to be a business enabler and not stop the business, but partner and figure out how can we leverage technology responsibly and then be able to answer to our stakeholders, what is it doing? And that just requires a lot of planning about where is the data coming from, how is it being trained and used, and how can we make sure that data doesn't go to the wrong place? Those are tough questions.
Your concept of the teams of teams resonates with me. Because if you think about AI assistance, Gen AI, it's usually for an individual productivity.
Sure.
Agents go to another level where they're working with each other, they're They mimic digital workers, right? You have workflows, you have multiple workflows working together, which essentially you're getting AI to become teams of teams. And if you're, delivering teams of teams on all the security threats and the data under the covers, there's a fusion there, it sounds to me, right?
Yeah, I think even if we look at machine learning and something as simple as alerting sounds great. The computer is going to tell me when something is wrong, and then the leader says, I should look at this light that went red on this dashboard. And now what we've seen is that there are just too many alerts. And so we released ML and AI to help calm down the alerts. And it's really being respectful of the analyst's time so they can really concentrate on what matters. Mm-hmm. They can look at more things and be able to triage what matters, get that information to leaders, and leaders can make risk-based decisions. It's much like when I was a military officer on the battlefield, you never have all the information, but you want to have as much as you can have quickly so you can focus your time planning and reacting where it matters. I think the other area that we see is with AI itself, you can pull these insights together, but at the end of the day, I guess for carpenters, when power tools, it's not like power tools are putting carpenters out of business. They can just build more houses.
Right. Mm-hmm. Superpower.
And so that's where we see AI. They're power tools for people to be able to do more than they were before because technology isn't slowing down.
But on the alert front, you bring up a good point. Sure. The prevailing wisdom is that AI is enabled attackers to just overwhelm the humans that used to be able to, technology would take care of 99% of the attacks, and then that 1% humans could deal with. But now with AI, the sentiment is it's just too much, to your point. So things have to change. Now, if I'm a shiny new toy cybersecurity startup, I would say, all that old stuff you got to throw out, which of course, as we talked about earlier, you just can't do that. So given Cisco's very large footprint in cybersecurity, now add Splunk to that. So you guys are, other than Microsoft, you've certainly got the biggest account footprint out there. And so how are you supporting that trend, and what processes are changing, and how are they being modernized, and how do you support that?
Sure. You look at Splunk, it's a data analytics platform for action. And I think that's what really helps us create value is you're taking action with the data and doing something where it's going to make the firm safer, it's going to enable a customer experience, it's going to do something that really realizes that investment and builds. What we see with attacks is that they are automated, just like you said. They're coming in much faster. AI can move very quickly. But we've also changed the standards on the cybersecurity side. So now the time to contain a breach is minutes, and to remediate it is not much longer. And these expectations keep increasing. The only way to meet it is through automation and being able to take a risk-based systematic approach, which requires planning and investment and good program strategy up front, with, at some level, everyone from executives to analysts being technologists and understanding the mission and what we're trying to do.
When you're looking at the processes, the teams of teams, right, beyond the traditional SOC KPIs, what do you think are the most important things that businesses should be looking at now that they perhaps couldn't do as much before?
I think it's coming back to what is the mission, and how do we map that back to metrics that help us understand where we need to course correct, where we need to invest, where we need to flex resources, and where to look at what's been going well and do more of that. Mm-hmm. And so metrics help leaders lead. There's the old adage, if you measure something, it gets better. And so it's doing that, but using it as something that's a tool where people can learn from that and then create new metrics. And you really look at the data as a microcosm of your business and build from that. And that's where I think the team of teams really helps, because people are sharing the same piece of data. Those silos are eliminated, and they're able to work together and understand how they can help each other. And people want to be collaborative. They want to work together for a common goal. And I think for leaders, it's socializing that goal and getting buy-in and making sure we have a clear, simple message about what are we doing and how can we use technology to help us get there.
There's obviously a lot of fear in the media. Journalists always go right for the negative. AI is going to take away jobs. I don't know about you guys, but I'm busier than I've ever been. My backlog of interesting stuff is just piling up as I use AI to deal with all the mundane things, and so I'm swamped. But pertaining to talent, I would think cybersecurity is the one area we always talk about the talent shortage, where people are embracing AI, saying this is, help me as a SOC analyst, deal with all these false positives. You pointed out, Peter, bringing automation is really the way to handle it. So how do you see the skills being addressed by AI, and how would they evolve? I mean, what kind of skills should people that aspire to get into cybersecurity be focused on?
I love that question. And when I went to undergraduate, I remember that there were a couple things. People were penetration testers for red teams. They were SOC analysts, or they were incident responders when things really go terribly wrong there. And I think that's what's amazing about cybersecurity, is because especially the financial services industry is operating at scale. You'll have thousands of people dedicated to cyber defense. So you have project managers, program managers, cyber threat intelligence analysts. You have people looking at vulnerability patching, and you have, of course, the traditional SOC analysts that are in security incident management to manage how are we thinking about things? Are we doing everything we're supposed to for stakeholders, from regulators and customers, and what needs to be done? And that's where that team of teams concept really matters in operating at scale and really looking at the objectives that we set out to do. And AI helps everyone understand that together. And it was interesting. I was looking at some curriculum about just kind of looking at how to integrate AI into an educational program. And my first thought was, there should be an AI class. That's the easy answer. Then I realized that for every one of the jobs I listed, there are AI use cases, and it's just going to become one more tool that we have. And, right now it's new, and so it's easy for us to segment that. But eventually it's going to be one more tool in our arsenal as we're defending financial institutions.
Yeah, as you know, Dave, I spent a lot of time on the AI talent marketplace, and it's my view that it's not going to take jobs as a general rule. It's about giving people superpowers to do more. It's going to make everyone smarter.
And they may make different jobs.
And different jobs.
You mean at the macro? I mean, it's going to eliminate jobs, right?
Well, I think it's different jobs, and they're adjacent too. They're not moving to a completely different sector. They're jobs that are tangential to what people are already doing.
Yeah, businesses will have to make a decision. They can either save costs, eliminate jobs, or they can do a hell of a lot more by giving people superpowers. And I think it's still an open question. We'll see in time here. But that kind of brings to a question about, let's go 3 years ahead now.
Yeah.
And you're a security analyst, and you're working with Splunk and Cisco, right? And with AI being incrementally infused into all this, what do you envision looking out a couple of years?
Well, if I'm a SOC analyst, hopefully a lot less Excel. And, we all have Microsoft, but I find them, Excel's kind of the duct tape of middle managers. When they don't have a tool to solve it, they make it work with Excel. And so hopefully they log in for the day. They see the alerts that have happened, or the information that's been highlighted. And they also see the information that hasn't been highlighted. There's an alert that they're missing something. Maybe something isn't working correctly. So they go take a look at that. And from there, if there is an alert that requires escalation, maybe there's a notification to the rest of the team. So multiple people are tracking it, and we have redundancies. And what I also think is, for a SOC analyst, they've traditionally looked inside the network, and cyber threat intelligence look outside the network. But now we'll have automation where we're looking for indicators of compromise that auto match against what's in the estate, and brings that up and bubbles it up to that team of teams to get more people to help out that SOC analyst. And the SOC analyst isn't alone anymore. They're not on the front line. If they miss something, they have a team that's supporting them. And when leaders receive that SOC analyst, the SOC analyst isn't sending it to another team to put it into a PowerPoint to, fix the fonts and get all the formats. That's already done. And the CISO wakes up at 2 a.m. because there's some geopolitical event, looks at a dashboard without having to wake up that SOC analyst to do it. And that's powerful.
And that SOC analyst, you can envision over time, becomes a supervisor of AI agents, some of which are acting autonomously. But the job goes from being the analyst to managing a digital workforce.
Exactly.
It could get really fascinating.
What's your relationship with AWS? Give us a bumper sticker on that.
Sure. I think, yeah, of course, Splunk Cloud uses a lot of AWS for serving customers. What we've also seen is AWS was, I think, the first or one of our first partners where we have federated search. And, we do want to meet people where they are with their data strategies. So if people have logs for compliance purposes and they store it in an S3 bucket, we can search those now from Splunk without having to ingest those. And it makes things a lot easier. And we're seeing customers that have, especially in the financial services, things that they just maybe can't move off on into the cloud because it's legacy technology, but they're obviously not avoiding the cloud because of how easy it makes to just run the business. And so with these hybrid environments, we can search information in AWS without ingesting it, leaving it right there in AWS's area. We've also seen where the uptime of using AWS products can exceed by a wide margin on-prem legacy technologies. And we look at back to the bank's mission statement, what they're really trying to do to serve customers and what their core competency is, and they focus their best talent. It's often not racking and stacking stuff in their data center. And so when we just look at the numbers for uptime using AWS, using cloud services, it's a force multiplier in allowing people to focus on what matters with your best talent.
What about those workloads that they're not going to move into cloud? Is that we bring the cloud to the data with something like outposts or local zones? How do you see customers dealing with that?
We see a lot of edge processing and looking at that, especially when we look at AI and the ability to bundle that. We have quite a few things we're working on to be able to push that out to the edge, to be able to compute that and move data around quickly when it needs to, but process it in place if it doesn't. And Splunk's made quite a few investments lately in our ability now where if you get data that's perhaps not relevant, you can discard that at the edge and only ingest what's important. And that helps significantly with compute because you're really only expending compute on what matters. And leaders get those insights that much faster.
And it saves on storage costs.
Well, there's also that.
Peter, thanks so much for joining us on theCUBE. Really appreciate
Thank you, Dave.
Perspectives and insights. Okay, this is Dave Vellante for Scott Mullins, and you're watching theCUBE's coverage of AWS Financial Services Symposium from the Big Apple. We're right back right after this short break.